Okay, so the purpose of this video is to go through one of the first things that you're going to come across as we transition online, and that's going to be where to access the data for the class and how to store your data for the class. Up until now, we've mostly used either the C drive or your personal USB drives, and especially if you're using the remote desktop, you're going to run into issues with that. If you're using ArcGIS locally on your computer, it'll be mostly the same as what you're used to. But I just wanted to talk about some of what you're going to experience and to show you some of that. So here we go. Okay, so I first want to show you what this video is going to cover. So I'm going to start by showing you how to access class data on the Files page of Canvas. Then we're going to discuss some considerations for remote desktop users. And then finally, I'm going to discuss some of the considerations for people with ArcGIS installed locally on their computers. For accessing class data, we're, like I mentioned, going to find that on the Canvas page for the class. So I'm currently showing the student view, so this is what your Canvas should look like. And we're going to go into the Files page over on the left-hand side. And then in the NR323 _ labs folder, you will see that all of the labs are available. Now I want to talk about how you're going to manage your data if you're using remote desktop. So the first thing you want to think about is that normally we would work off of our USB drive. Now if you think about this, this won't really work very well if we're using remote desktop. With remote desktop, we're accessing a computer in the Warner College Computer Lab. So if you plug in a USB drive to your personal computer, the lab in the computer lab won't be able to see it. So you won't be able to transfer data from that lab in the computer lab to your personal computer that way. So we need a workaround for this. And you want to think about this in a couple of different ways. So you want to think about it in terms of where you're going to work on your data and then where you're going to store your data. And so you're going to want to work on your data in a local folder on the C drive, and I will show you all of this in a minute. But you're going to want to put your data while you work on it in the Documents folder on the computer. Now, the problem with that Documents folder is that you don't want to store your data there because once you log off of the computer out of your remote desktop session, there's no guarantee that you'll be put back on that same computer. In fact, you probably won't. So then you will not be able to access the data in that Documents folder. So in order to keep working off of your data, you're going to want to put it onto the N drive, into the My Files folder. So let me show you that in practice. So I have remote desktop up here. You can see I'm in a remote session. And I'm in Canvas on the Files page. So I'm going to go like I'm going to download the Lab 6 data. And I'm going to download this. And now it's finished downloading. So I'm going to go look at it. And it's in my Downloads folder. I'm going to want to take that and put it into my Documents folder. So now that it's in my Documents folder, I can unzip it. And I'll do that by right-clicking and clicking Extract All. And now I have my data that I can work off of. So right now, this Documents folder is a local drive on this computer. So it's going to work really well for me for working on ArcGIS because it's going to work a lot faster for using the files in that local folder than it would if I had the data on the N drive, for example. So I'm going to open this up and go into, I'm not going to go into GIS right now, just because it'll be easier to do it this way. So I'll open up the lab file. And I will just pretend like I'm making an edit to the lab file. And so I'll just pretend like I'm answering this question here, question 2 on this next page, and I'm just going to type blah, blah. I have an answer. It is this. And so I've done some work here, and I want to save my work, so I'm going to save it. And let's say I've done a bunch of work within this folder. So let's say I've done a bunch of GIS work. I've edited this document so it has all my answers in it. And now I'm ready to be done with my session. So what we're going to want to do, like I said, we don't want to keep that on this local drive. So we're going to want to put it onto onto our N drive. And so I'm going to open up a new folder here. And then I'm going to put this over here. And I'm going to put this one here. And in this left-hand pane, I'm going to go to my N drive. And once you're in the N drive, you'll see that there's this My Files folder. And once you go in there, you'll see that there is a bunch of data. This is stuff that I had before, but this folder is a folder that you can do whatever you want with. So you can just store your data in here. So you can see I created a folder for this class, NR323, and I'm going to go in there. And it's empty. So what I'm going to want to do is to move my Lab 6 data over to here. Great, and now it's transferred. So now I have this data. If I go into, if I go into the N drive and go to My Files and go to NR323, I can find it here. So this is how you're going to want to store all of your data as you're working on it. And then once you're ready to go work on this data again, you'll again just take it and drag it into documents, and then you can work on it there. So it's a fairly simple workflow, but you'll just want to get familiar with this, because if you're working off of data on the N drive, it will go really slowly. And if you try to save data on the C drive, then there's a chance you won't be able to get it. There's actually a good chance you won't be able to get it. So make sure you really crystallize this in your mind, and you will be much, much happier. So if you're using ArcGIS on your own personal computer, actually not a lot really has changed from what you would otherwise do in the lab. You'll be able to, of course, work with all of the files once you've downloaded everything off of Canvas, just the same way that you ordinarily would in the lab. In fact, because you're not in the lab and it's your personal computer, of course, you can save all of your files wherever you want. So I would just say continue to try to use good data management practices, but otherwise, I think it'll be pretty straightforward for you. So actually, there's not really a point to this video other than that I didn't want you to feel left out if you are using ArcGIS on your personal computer. So hopefully you feel included and reassured. So that's all I have for this video. We'll be again covering this again and again. But if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or a message on Canvas, and I'll be happy to try to answer it. I really want this to stick for you because I think it's one of the biggest things to remember and to understand as we move online. I really think once you get this and once you have the remote desktop or ArcGIS installed locally, that the rest of the class will really function similarly to before. So yeah, thank you very much for your time, and we'll be talking soon.